A few years back, you may have heard of Boko Haram in Nigeria, and they captured a lot of girls and they made them into sex slaves. And it was a terrible, lurid, disgusting story. And Michelle Obama was horrified, and she held up a sign with a hashtag, "Bring back our girls." You remember that? And a few years later, ISIS did the same thing. They captured a bunch of Yazidi and Christian women, and they made them into sex slaves. Now, unfortunately, this is something that also has justification in the Islamic texts. Chapter 4, verse 3 of the Quran, it says, if you fear, marry the women that seem good to you, 2 or 3 or 4, it's 4 wives allowed. If you fear that you will not be able to treat them justly, then only one, or from among those your right hands possess. Now, what is that? What is one whom your right hands possess? We get a clue in 424, chapter 4, verse 24 of the Quran, which is explaining to Muslim men various women that they should not have sexual relations with. And it says, also forbidden to you are all married women, except those women whom your right hands possess. Okay, so now we know that you can have sex with women who your right hands possess. Where did they come from? That is in chapter 33, verse 50, where it says, O prophet, we have sent forth to you, O prophet, we have made lawful for you your wives, whose bridal dues you have paid, and the slave girls you possess from among the prisoners of war. The slave girls you possess from among the prisoners of war. The slave girls you possess from among the prisoners of war are just like those Yazidi and Christian women and the girls in Nigeria who were captured during battles with non-Muslims by jihadi groups. Now, this Quran that I brought, it's very helpful. It has commentary by Sayyid Abu Ala Maududi. Any of you can ask the Muslims who are boycotting, you can ask them about Maududi. He is a Pakistani Islamic scholar. He died in 1979. He was internationally famous, and he was the founder of Jamaat-e-Islami, which is still the largest Islamist political party in Pakistan. He was also a scholar of Islam. He wrote a multi-volume commentary on the Quran, and this is a handy one-volume digest of it. I tell you about Maududi because he's very mainstream. I guarantee you that if you go into your local Islamic bookstore, they will have writings by Maududi. They'll probably have his commentary on the Quran. And I've never been in an Islamic bookstore, and I do go to them quite often, that doesn't have Maududi. Anyway, he says, captives who your right hands possess. He says, this expression denotes slave girls, i.e. female captives of war, who are distributed by the state among individuals when no exchange of prisoners of war takes place. Now, this is a terrible human rights violation, the destruction of the lives of innumerable numbers of girls and young women, and it is absolutely stigmatized to talk about the motives that give rise to it and the justifications that are given for it. When I tried to quote these verses, I thank you for being polite. When I tried to quote these verses the other day at the University of Buffalo, I was immediately overwhelmed with people screaming and yelling and booing. And I thought, you know that you're booing the Quran. And you're supposed to be not the Islamophobes, so you might want to rethink. But in any case, the problem in obscuring the motives and the justifications for this practice is that you're never going to eradicate this practice without addressing them. You're never going to stop this from happening until there is reform from Muslims of goodwill who say, no, this is something that must never happen now, and they will go into, not talk to non-Muslims about it, but go to the Muslims who believe this kind of thing is justified and tell them that this must not happen. And until that kind of thing takes place, these practices are going to continue. And as long as everyone who's calling attention to them is demonized, then they're going to continue all the more. Evil advances under the cover of darkness. When you shed light on it, that's when it stops. And so that is what I am doing, and that is why I am here. I thank you for listening. These are unpleasant facts, but they are realities. It is not hatred or bigotry to discuss the motives and goals of jihad terrorists, and the enterprise of calling it hatred and bigotry is an effort to make it impossible to impede the advance of the jihad terrorists. And so you are to be commended for standing up to that stigmatization and demonization. And I hope that you will continue to pursue the defense of the freedom of thought and the freedom of speech, which is the foundation of any free society.